Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to the Jim Carrey Project. This is the project where we are watching all of Jim Carrey's movies in chronological order. I am your host, Brian Kondrach, and with me, as always, is
Carrie Grant.
And today, we just finished watching The Majestic. This is a 2001 release. Where did my list go? I did not have it up. Yay! Real classy, Brian. It's directed by Frank Darabont. Written by Michael Sloan and starring Jim Carrey, Bob Balaban, Brent Briscoe, Jeffrey Delmon, Amanda Delmer, Ellen Greenfield, Hal Holbrook, Laurie Holden, Martin Landau, Ron Rufkin, David Ogden Siders, James Whitmore. And yeah, it was released December 21, 2001. Christmas-ish movie.
Yeah.
So, what'd you think?
I liked it.
Yeah?
I think I'd seen it once before, but when I started watching,
Yeah.
I'm like, I definitely don't remember.
I remember seeing the part where the guy was writing the letter. That is the Frank or Luke, the Luke character was writing the letter in military and hearing the voiceover, but like that's all I remember from the movie.
Because you remembered it was Matt Damon's voice.
Yeah, exactly. So if you haven't seen The Majestic, really quick rundown of it. As a young Hollywood screenwriter loses his job and sets off up a trip to California coast without plans to return, writer finds new courage, love, and power of his creations. So Jim Carrey's character is accused of being a communist.
Right.
He gets drunk and he drives and has an accident, forgets who he is, and then gets mistaken for this lost son of this town who runs the Majestic, which is a movie theater. So,
Right.
there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, there is. I mean, one thing, and I feel bad. I wasn't paying that much attention to Jim Carrey. And again, in a good way, because he just is the character. And so I'm not like, I was so into the story. I wasn't really watching him a whole lot. But what I kept coming back to is I felt like this whole movie was about the town. I mean, to me, that's the main character.
Yeah.
In a way. I mean, it's
Lawson is the town that goes through growth and then has these healing moments, as opposed to Jim Carrey, who's, his whole basic thing is, I don't know who I am. Let's figure out who I am. I remember who I am. Oh, I'm going to do stuff that I learned from being in this town.
He grew a bit,
but
I felt like what the main person or entity that changed was the town, and it healed because of him. So I don't know. That's where I was really like, I really liked seeing like the small town, and I mean, it's a sad story because I guess they lost, I think they said 62 of their sons, the boys, from the town who went to World War II. And so it seems like a very small town, and that's a big number.
Yeah.
So
if everybody knows each other, and especially in the 1950s, if everybody knows each other,
it's like
went
a
to
whole
school
generation of boys.
Yeah.
Like that's 3 grades or 4 grades of boys that graduated
All
from this one little
lost.
town that all passed. And then look, from what we could tell, one returned. I mean, maybe there was a few more that returned and maybe moved away or whatever.
The chef at Mabel's,
who lost his
arm was damaged. There were probably a couple that we didn't see who moved out, left and gone to Hollywood.
But it really
like that.
does seem like they lost a generation of boys.
Yeah. So they definitely needed the rebirth of the Majestic, and to remember that we are not with some hard work, and we can be proud of ourselves, and we can be excited to be alive again, as opposed to just being lost and in this drab
felt like
place.
there was still this huge sadness to the town that they had not gotten over yet. And she even, the main actress that plays the love interest in this one, Lauren something or rather, Lauren
Holden, who we both kept thinking was
Adele.
Amy Smart. Her name is Adele in the thing, but it's like, hey, she looks like Amy Smart, or Amy Smart looks like her.
They just look similar.
She actually does say, at one point she says that the town needed him more than she needed him. Like, she needed him as well, but the town really needed him to be alive. And I mean, Luke's father, the people working at the Majestic, just everybody was so
the whole
downtrodden
town,
when it happened.
It's like a miracle for them, and it's like the mayor even said, I guess he had lost 2 sons. It's like, having my own sons come back. Like, there was just so much more happy. I don't know, so much happiness with his return. And so what, we kept saying, well, like no pressure on him. Like he comes in, he has amnesia because he had the accident, and he comes into this town and like everyone is like, can you imagine? Yeah. Like if you have amnesia and then suddenly you're the most important person to everybody, to 1,000 people or something like that.
Yeah. I can't even imagine being one of the townsfolk and going through the loss, let alone the return of someone. And then you're, what you said, that's a lot of pressure on Jim Carrey to be this guy. And it's like, I don't even know what I had for breakfast.
Right.
And like, now what am I doing?
He took, and his character took it in pretty quickly and understood it, I think, very quickly of like who he was and how important it was. And I think he hesitated in like saying that he was or whatever, but he also, I think, could see like the joy that he was bringing people, so he sort of just kind of let it keep happening.
You don't want to be, you wouldn't want to be like, no, I'm not him, I don't know if I'm him, because like, what if you are?
He doesn't correct people. After a while, he's just not correcting anybody anymore, because he doesn't know. I mean, he doesn't know for sure.
He could be. It's a loss of memory. That's a scary, losing your memory, or like dementia, like those whole like mental issues are like terrifying to me, where it's like to me, not know who I am, even when, especially like when I'm older and like later in life, or like even now, like just there is this weird sense of self and sense of identity that like, if you didn't know who you were, like what's the point of even like existing in life and stuff. But like, of course, he finds purpose, he finds love, and he finds who he is in this one. It's terrifying.
Terrifying. And do you like you're saying, like you don't know who you are? Well, do you reinvent then who you are? Do you decide like, well, okay, well then you're an adult, or unless you're elderly, I guess. But like if it happened now, like, well, I decide what I want to be, and I feel like maybe.
Myself.
Well, and I think he kind of did that, because I think he started to feel like he was Luke, and maybe he did do all these amazing things, and then. It was a very moving moment when he realized, when he was watching. So he was a film writer, and then at the Majestic they played his film, and as he's watching it, he realizes he's saying the words before they're coming out, and he realized who he was, and then that's when he came back, and the way his eyes like filled with tears, and he like kind of freaks out. But I think it's also like, I don't know, maybe he was already feeling like he was this one person, and now you realize, oh, I'm not that person.
That's a big shoe to,
and then that's what he basically says at the end, is like, Luke was a better person than I was, and I'm going to try to be a better person, and that's when he stands up for himself at the end. So
incredible.
It's really interesting to see, like, like maybe you can
reinvent yourself in a new way.
Become a better person. I know people want to do that all the time. Like you're kind of like, oh, I should, I don't like this about myself, or I should be nicer, or whatever. And then maybe you can just decide to do that.
You can easily do that.
Sorry, I feel like I'm getting off track.
It takes a little bit of work. Well,
But it's part of the story.
I just finished this whole online science of happiness class that was like,
I've been hearing about that.
It's all about these rewirements, is what they're calling it and stuff, and it is basically like acknowledging what's wrong with you, or like acknowledging that you're not happy, realizing that these things, necessarily like money, career things, might not make you happy, but also being like grateful and like savoring and things, which I think the character does a whole lot in this. And like you brought up like you weren't watching Jim Carrey very much, but like I have these notes, like 3 or 4 key moments throughout this movie where the shift happens when like he's pretty bland the whole first third of the movie, but then he leans into being the Luke character, and the movie tone like just changes and speeds up, and you're like, man, this is really cool. And then you said the point where he realizes he's not that character. Like, that's a major shift. I got a little bit of goosebumps about it because it was such a strong like moment. And then the whole thing where he like acknowledges that he's not, but wants to be better, is a huge tonal shift in this movie. There were like 3 or 4 major tonal shifts.
Totally
that was
what
like,
it was.
That was Jim Carrey being really good, but it's also like as a character and like as a human being, like those are shifts in life that people have to deal with, and learning how to be better at being themselves than like just accepting who we are and the place we are in our space.
Well, and lots of times things like that happen to us because a loss of a family member, or just other events in our life. You're like, okay, well, that's different. So like, who am I going to be now, and how am I going to deal with this now?
I can't call mom, or I can't call a friend, or can't like go and live in this place.
You have to make decisions,
Yeah.
and I think you're right. Like I think those were definitely those
those
key
kind of
shifts
big
and points
moments.
in it. And I think the most dramatic is, and the one I kind of you see it coming because you think so basically he's getting at the end they're going to say, hey, if you just like name a few other people who are communists in Hollywood as well, then and you say you're sorry, then we'll like forgive you. And so he has this whole like paper written and the love interest, who is a lawyer, who's becoming a lawyer, is like, well, that's not right. That's not the Constitution. That's, if you're truly not a communist, just say you're not a communist.
Stand up for yourself and don't just be pushed around.
And so it kind of leads, you kind of think he's probably going to get there. He's probably going to do it. But like, it still was an emotional speech and an emotional moment. And I, watching it, wasn't sure what the outcome was going to be. I was hopeful that it would be taken well.
He was so close to being like held in contempt that he could have been torn out of the
gone in a second, but because of the audience, the rest of the people in the room were so supportive of that and like agreed with that. I don't know. What's going on in the United States this week, and what's been going on. It's just like it rings true still. Like
in a sense,
government of the power of the government and like our rights and I don't know, the whole thing is just
and the burden of proof is on the government for, especially with if they're taking people to court for anything like this. It's just it's crazy. Like it is kind of a bonkers movie. Like we keep watching these movies and they seem so timely for like what is exactly happening when we're watching them. Like with the cable guy, we were stuck inside. We had all the advances of technology.
It's true.
And then
and now there's
Truman
the
Show, you're stuck in this world that you can't get out of.
Yeah.
We were there, and now there's the riots, and now there's like all of this stuff that the government needs to do better for its citizens than what they have been doing. And of course our leadership, which I don't want to get into that stuff, but McCarthyism was a like the 1950s were this boom of economics and science and Hollywood, and then you had witch hunts like McCarthyism, just like tearing people away from their jobs and communities for nothing, absolutely nothing, except that somebody said, you're a communist.
Right.
How dare you? It's like, that's freedom of speech. What's wrong with that?
Yeah. I mean, it's okay. I mean, it's crazy. You're right. I mean, like, I don't know. Like, if we would have watched this, a year ago, would it have been, we have felt different about it.
Probably wouldn't have resonated as much.
No, it's like, it's really strange. Yeah. Even when he took out it wasn't the Declaration, it was the Constitution. Yeah. I don't know why it was the Declaration. The Constitution, and he read the First Amendment. I got chills just like saying the right for people to assemble peacefully and like freedom of speech was in there and all that kind of stuff, and I was like, oh god, like that is like right where we are.
Good reminder of like what we need to be doing peacefully.
I mean, it's interesting. It's funny that these things come around over and over again.
It is.
I mean, maybe that's why there is the Constitution, because these things do come up again and people do try to stop it.
Those in power want more power and don't want to give it up. Ooh, this is getting a little deep. So let's talk about you had this moment where you looked at me in this movie, and I thought it was funny because you're like, "Did we laugh at all yet in this movie?" And I was like, "No, I don't think so." But it just makes me. It made me think. Like, there's all these little moments that Jim Carrey has. There's a little place for fun and playfulness in a lot of his moments, especially once he becomes the Luke character, and he's like, we'll fall in love. But I feel like this movie was a little predictable at some points. The script itself was totally utterly predictable. Where
I just said that too. Even I knew he was gonna tell the truth at the end. It wasn't a question. Like, it was pretty clear.
I'm talking about like specific lines of dialogue. Why did you go to this meeting? I was a horn dog. Or I was a hornball, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Or what is? There was another.
What else would he have said?
I don't know.
Yeah.
How else would you say?
He had said that earlier in the movie, so he knew he was going to say that. Well, I didn't know he was going to say it that way, but I mean,
I don't know.
I wondered actually before because I didn't remember it that well. Before he did eventually remember who he was, I was questioning whether he was playing this off the whole time, like what they're assuming that he's doing.
Yeah.
I kept thinking, is he actually does he really know who he is? And he's just a sight, like he's like, oh, okay, well, they think I look like this guy, so I might as well just like pretend. So there was a couple of those moments for me of like questioning, like, does he already know or not? But then it shows you when he actually does
definitely
know.
Not. He definitely does not know.
That was, they could have played that up a little bit more, I feel like, because if I had that question just because they set it up a bit, like he's like, well, let's just drive and never come back. Yeah. Then he has an accident and he doesn't come back.
How convenient for an accident.
Yeah. So they could have like maybe played that part of it. Like, I think it would have been interesting for his character to be like, well, is he actually a good guy or is he a bad guy for a while here? Because you couldn't tell. And even in the end, he kind of says, I've just been like I didn't really stand up for anything, and I'm going to stand up for myself now. And it's true. Like, he's kind of like a meh character. Yeah. And you said he's kind of like dull in the beginning.
In the first third of it, like, the two things that I wrote about it is so much whispering. Like, everybody at the very beginning of the movie, when he's like, before he's in the writer's room, but then anytime after he leaves the writer's room, and then the emotional thing, it wasn't that it was, hey, whisper, whisper, whisper. It was that it was that weird stage whisper of, everyone is just so downtrodden all the time, and it's just, they're taking my job, they're taking my life. Like, there was no emotion to it. But
it's just a loud whisper to show that you're
that he was distraught. Yeah. and then, like I said, there's a moment when he's like, yeah, I am this guy. Like, even when he's lost in the town, I don't know who I am. Whisper, whisper, whisper. Like, but then he's like, I am, and then he becomes like a human again. It's crazy.
That's really funny.
But
I didn't notice that part, but
that's what I thought.
Right.
It was just so blah at the beginning of the movie. But then once we get that tone shift,
it's like that Batman, like,
I don't know who I am anymore. They took my job. I don't know what I'm talking about.
No, I think it's really funny. You're right. You're totally right. Yeah. I didn't really break it down that much, but that's what it was. The acting was a whisper. It
was kind of a wash. I mean, it was bland, and like, I think this is why this movie gets such strange reviews, is that it was like, there's so much leading up to such a good movie at the end. Like, it becomes, if you cut out the first 20 minutes of the movie, maybe even like more than that, like, you could get to the whole, he's a communist. No, I'm not. Let's get out of here. Let's get to the Majestic. Like, the movie would be so much better.
Because it's 2.5 hours.
It didn't need to be 2.5 hours.
I agree with that.
You could get away with a 90-minute movie on this one. Yeah. Maybe a 2-hour movie, but not 2.5 hours. No. Like, I know there's a bunch of setups for him to, like, we have to care that he loses. You can set up faster
than they did.
Yeah. And I mean, the fact that he comes back, like, his life is over. His real life that he knew it was over. Yeah. But I guess he's committed to this new life of, like, he didn't need to be a big Hollywood star. He needed to be, I guess, I mean, he has everything he needs. His name's in the movies. He's in the movies. He's like, I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't really, like, I mean, he went.
I lost kind of my train of thought.
No, it's okay. Yeah. I mean, I think what you would do is, like, I think probably every bit kind of needed to happen. So they need, knowing that he's excited that he has a movie and then even that bar scene when he gets drunk, it was longer than it needed to be. Yeah. Like, that whole monkey thing and all. Like, that could have been like 2 minutes instead of 8 minutes or whatever it was.
2 or 3 lines, and he's like, "Are you in any mood to drive? Don't tell me what to do. I'm getting out of town."
And then everyone thinking he's Luke. That took a long time. Well, this guy. Oh, now he thinks he's Luke, or maybe he doesn't think he's Luke. And this was Luke, and so all of that was.
He looks so familiar.
Like, too many of those.
Yeah, too many.
Cut a few of those out.
It's eerie. It is funny that, like, the phrase that, like, he looks so familiar is, like, I can't quite place it. I actually have a note in here that it is strangely familiar. Watching Jim Carrey, of course, we've seen him in so much different things. I was looking at his eyes so much in this movie. Yeah. Like, we saw him in The Grinch, and there's the moment in The Grinch where you realize his heart expands and he's covered in prosthetics, but you can see it in his eyes.
I said it in his eyes too.
And then this one, at the same part, you see it multiple times.
He acts with his eyes very well. Yeah. He does. And that's why, I mean, he did generally, but, like, again, like, there's usually one, like, in the Grinch, that one moment, and then this one, it was when his eyes teared up in the theater. And I was just like, you get drawn in. Like,
you really do.
Yeah.
Oh, here's what we were talking about. Back to this other thing is that too many people saying, "Oh, he looks so familiar. He looks so familiar." I made the comment while we were watching it that if he's been intimate with this Adele girl, she should be able to tell almost immediately if he is this character or not.
Well, and you would think more people would have some kind of intimate knowledge. Now, that's a physically intimate knowledge.
Yeah. But it's also the 50s or 40s. We don't know how intimate they were.
Might not have seen anything. Below the waist. But
it wouldn't have been proper in the 1940s.
But even kissing, like, you would kind of think, like, I don't know.
If you kiss someone and are, like, in love with them, you know what they kiss. Like,
I don't think you would change that. That's a physical thing, probably. So that's one thing. And the only one and she did say at the end, I think I knew, I just didn't want to accept it. Yeah. And then the only one who really said he knew was the guy who worked at the theater, and that was the piano. And he kind of covered for him and said, "Oh, I taught him that," even though he knew for sure. But like, everyone else thought that too. Like, the piano teacher said, "No, Luke wouldn't have been able to play like this." So like. I think there would have been a lot more of those things where they would have like been like, nah, but everyone just wanted to believe, and I think that they set that up that like this town needed it, and so they all were turning a blind eye to whatever it might have been that would have tipped them off. So
I really liked the actor who played the father in this one is Martin Landau.
Yeah, he's good.
Old man, has been in a lot of stuff. I think he is died at 89 years old in 2017, but that is a long. He had a long career.
I know I've seen him in other things
from
too.
Freaking before in the 50s, and up to 2000.
I feel like there's a lot of old guys in this movie.
There's a lot of old actors that are still young. This is 19 years ago.
Yeah, I know.
We lost quite a few of the people that were in this one.
But even like the whole, the people who are kind of going after him and the committee and all of that kind, and the Hollywood producers. There's a lot of old white guys, but that's who ran the world during that time. So it makes sense to be a lot of old white guys in the movie, because that's who was in charge at the time.
And speaking of the old white guys, it was fun that we got the Carl and the two Reiners, and then
voiceovers.
As the executives in the beginning and end voiceover scenes.
Yeah,
but it's a bunch of white guys running the thing.
Yeah, and again, I mean, were those parts even necessary?
I don't think so. I mean, you can show that he's got a movie in the theater.
You don't need to have that talk before. Yeah.
Although, I did have that question, like, do we need the entire journey to be excited about his return to the small town? Like, did we need him? We already been over this. It could be a 30, 40-minute shorter kind of movie.
No, they could have taken that.
Yeah. Let's a lot of cute little references to some other things in here. The Coco Bongo Club.
Yeah.
We've seen Jim Carrey at the Coco Bongo once before.
Right. That's funny.
Then we've got the
which is funny because it seems like a serious movie. Like, why would they throw something like that?
See, that's where there was those little moments of like, ooh, let's call it this, or like Jim Carrey definitely had a couple of things where like I recognized him from like Liar Liar, or like his little moments of being a father.
Do a lot of faces or anything like that though. No. But there was some. He did good, and he was good for the seriousness.
Yeah.
Now again, like you said, I think he fell a little flat in the beginning because he like didn't know who he was. So how do you act like you don't know who you are? I guess you were just going to be dull.
You stare into space and kind of question everything that comes your way.
Yeah, you're like this all the time.
That's not a very enthralling, exciting. There's a specific word and I can't think of what it is. But it does not really draw you in very well.
No. But then once he loosened up a bit, as he was Luke toward the end, and that he was kind of, he had a cute little cutie, cute, like we talked about before. Like I like seeing him in a relationship on screen. I think it's always interesting to see, and I think he was cute and playful and loving, and it's kind of that. I liked that part of it.
Their relationship, him and Adele, Laurie Holden's actress is Laurie Holden. Their relationship was like very intimate, very endearing. Like, this is another thing, you said it yourself. It's like, we see him grow, and he does well when he's in relationships.
Yeah.
In movies. His relationship with Cindy Lou Who brought us endearing moments. And I mean, he is really good. No matter how calm or crazy he is, he has his way of like connecting with people on a completely different level.
The death scene was like,
that
was
is
really
happening?
good. Like, he did amazing in the death scene of his father, who's not really his father, but it's his father, and Landau as well. Like, I was just like, that was like,
I am really glad
a really like emotional, like, I'm there on this one.
And I think Landau definitely helped. For a while, I thought Landau was carrying a lot of this film, like at the beginning, but then Jim Carrey comes into his own. But yeah, that moment,
Landau
of
the one
him,
who dies, so he's
probably one
of
the better death scenes of like an actor. It's not that it's
pretty good.
Oh, I'm not dying, I can't. But it's just like, I don't want to. I'm not. He's like, he accepted that it was his time to go, and he was glad that he got to see his son. Yeah. Which you got to wonder, like, it's your dad. You would probably know yes or no, but again, maybe the town just needed it. I'm really glad that Jim Carrey's as Peter decided to keep it close to himself, that he didn't tell his dad. Didn't tell his dad that it's like, I'm not your son. It's like,
no, don't say that.
Why would you do that? Why would you do it? Let him go out peacefully.
So maybe he's growing already there.
He has already grown.
So it was interesting. I mean, you know, the movie kind of, I guess the secondary part, the subplot, the McCarthyism,
the
McCarthyism, and all
CIA
that
operatives
was kind of interesting. I kind of almost would have. I guess it's not the main idea of the story, but I know there's other movies and other, like, you know, documentaries and things like that about, you know, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. I don't know a whole lot about it. I was just looking up a little bit about. It
was a good way to reel us back in from this fantasy world that is the Majestic and the town of Lawson. And especially a really hard moment of growth. But I forgot about the subplot, and he was supposed to be back in Hollywood facing a committee. Like,
they didn't break it in as much. Like, there would be like long periods of time when we hadn't even seen any of that going on. So it did make you forget about it. But we said like some of the names and stuff came from what was really happening.
Real life.
What were they called? The something 10. The Hollywood 10.
The Hollywood 10.
Like, one of them's last name was Lawson, who was in the Hollywood 10, and then the town's name was Lawson.
The House Committee of Un-American Activities, which is just like, could you have a more like government witch hunt title for a group? It's like anything could be considered un-American if you are like a.
I feel like there's people who still people who think that about people now, which is
it's so terrible.
The opposite of what it should be.
I don't know much about this, but there was definitely like the 10 that said they didn't.
They did try to use some of those names and things like that, which is I think a great thing, because I mean this is what it was. This is kind of part of the story. So like, give props to some of the people who really went through it.
I can't even imagine having to go through something like that, where it's just basically, if you made a film or wrote a script or like said something to the press at a Hollywood release, like, you were likely to get arrested and thrown in jail or questioned about your loyalties to the American state.
And I feel like there's still, even today, there's a tension, usually, not always, but especially with the administration now, between celebrity, Hollywood people and government, you know, because people, they both have a platform, right? So celebrities, well, now we have tweeting and we have, you know, all that kind of stuff, Instagram. So like, you know, they have a platform that people will listen to, and the government wants them to listen to that too. And so when they don't agree, you know, there's this tension, and like, you know, it's even now like our Trump administration will, like, you know, call out people and fight on Twitter with celebrities, which is so strange. Stupid. But I mean, that is part of it. Even during elections, you know, sometimes people get like sick. They're like, I don't want to hear what celebrities are voting for anymore. Like, but the celebrities are like, well, I think I have a platform, so I want to share what I believe. And it's always this like tension of between the two, so it's still there.
Yeah. It's just more high tech. I'd rather
it's more high tech, and it's hopefully they're not like going after them like to put them in prison.
To comb through somebody's old attendance records for a meeting in college in the 1930s and 40s was probably a lot more strenuous of an activity, and like you had to really want to nail somebody as opposed to, hey, I'm going to go look at your tweet from 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, sorry, you're under the gun now.
Yeah.
You're getting fired from movies or getting fired.
Totally.
Like,
I mean, it does
whatever.
happen.
It's crazy.
I mean, it's funny because it's still relevant.
It is still very relevant. One of my favorite moments in this movie is the script that Jim Carrey was writing at the beginning, for his Sahara movie, whatever it's called.
Pirates
of the Sahara is that Bruce Campbell shows up as the B movie star in a B movie in this technically an A-list movie because it would have been Jim Carrey as an A-lister Hollywood guy. But Bruce Campbell is classic. He worked with Sam Raimi, who's done he did Spider-Man's, and he's done a lot of like incredible movies since then. He was kind of the forebearer of a lot of like absurd horror films and things like that.
Okay.
So Bruce Campbell played this character Ash Williams, who gets his hand cut off in one of the movies. He attaches a chainsaw to it and he fights hordes of zombies. And it's that's a movie that I'm gonna have to sit you down and make you watch.
Make me,
Ash. So he is known as being a B movie star.
Okay.
He actually has a book that's like it's called "If Chins Could Talk: My Life as a B movie Actor," and the fact that he shows up in this as a B movie actor is just so tongue in cheek, and it's just like, oh, who can we get to be in this?
In the B movie. Well, good. He got an A-list movie as a B movie actor.
It just made me absolutely pleased to see him in there.
Good for Bruce.
And then the guy who played the bad guy in the
like
B
his
movie.
IMDb looks like
Army of Darkness, Bubba Hotep, Evil Dead, and then he had a Showtime movie called Ash versus Evil Dead, which is 3 seasons long of just like, and it's the kind of movie where you get an arm cut off with a chainsaw, and it just blood, it does not like gory blood. It's just like constant spraying, like gallons and gallons. Oh, it's so funny. Like they're terrible bad, but they're so fun.
That'd be fun to do though.
I know. I really want to do it. And then there was the guy. He was the Arab guy in the thing. I've seen him in a bunch of stuff. I can't think of his name, but it was just so funny.
Yeah, he looked familiar too.
So we're getting close to wrapping this up.
Okay.
Anything else you want to touch on, or anything notes or whatever?
No, I think the only thing, so I wrote this down, this is just a personal thing again, but so my family's from a really small town, it's like a 300 person kind of small town. Yeah. And they have one church, church and one bar. That's it. That's what they have. No stoplights. But I was there, a while back I was there, and they had this memorial, and I remember from when I was little, but there was a bunch of names on it, and just recently I was there, and I as an adult, I read it and I was like, oh my God. So the small town of 300 people, they had, I don't know, it was something like 40 boys go into World War II, and every single one came back.
What?
So they built this memorial, and they have their names on them too, but they're all
alive and well.
Yeah. And they were just because then it's right next to the church, and they were just this was a miracle of,
that's
from God
amazing.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
So when they, I kept thinking about that when they were, this whole town was so sad about losing so many, and I'm like, wow, maybe it really is a crazy thing that this little town had every
one of them loses everyone.
It's like a farming town, nobody there. Yeah,
that's absolutely bonkers. You can't even imagine.
That was just a little side note of something I just found interesting. Personally,
everyone would have a lot different view of American politics than the world if, I told you, if everything was military service was compulsory as opposed to voluntary. But that'll never happen that I know of. It's really interesting. I was just looking at some stuff about ratings and stuff because we'll talk a little bit about that. So this movie Had a budget of $72 million.
Oh, that's big.
It is fairly large. I mean, it's a lot of people, a lot of actors.
I guess
it
a lot
does. There's probably a little bit of
they rented a town
and redeveloping it.
Yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't go into what cost so much.
Yeah.
It made $37.3 million.
Aww.
It lost 40 some odd million dollars, which is so weird. Because
Jim Carrey has been so big.
He has. And I mean, he came off The Grinch.
Yeah.
But then Me, Myself, and Irene was kind of bleh.
Yeah.
So, like, and he did The Grinch. But then, like, to come into this, it's like, what happened? He did. And it's weird, though, because, like, looking at reviews and everything, like, on IMDb, it's 6.9.
Yeah.
On Rotten Tomatoes, it's 42.
Okay.
On Metacritic, it's 27%. So there's a big discrepancy of like, is this a good movie or is it a bad movie?
What did the critics say?
Did
you see any of that?
There was
Maybe they had some bad reviews from critics early on, and some people were like, "No, I'm not going to put my money into that."
There's some stuff about Roger Ebert gave it 3.5 stars and praised the film and its ideals about like. Salute the flag. This is the world we're looking for. Nostalgia of small town living and movie palaces, which we talked about that. AMC probably is not gonna make it after all of this stuff.
This might be just like that.
The idea of
thing.
Small little private movie theaters that do specialty shows are the way that the world's gonna have to be. So it's got some decent small town folks for traditional American values, but it's not like it's a crazy good review or anything like that. Some people said derivative, self-satisfied fable that could be more treacly. It couldn't be more treacly and simple-minded. So sweet and like whatever and simple.
I mean, I think some people like that, but I guess not enough. So I mean, that's sad that it lost money. Maybe we gave them a few dollars buying it.
Yeah. So what did you give it a rating of?
I mean, I think the idea of it is great. I don't think it was executed as well as it could have been because of the timing and all of that.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
I mean, I'll give the movie
7, maybe. I didn't hate it. Yeah. I like if I had to sit down and watch it again, I'd watch it again.
Yeah. I mean, there were some very powerful moments in it. And I think if you hold on to those, then the movie and like the message is fun. Like, remember, First Amendment. Like, we're in this together.
I took some good lessons from it for sure.
So I would give the last hour and 50 minutes an 8.
Okay.
Jim Carrey's performance after he becomes the character and then goes through the rebirth and then the trials of the trial or whatever. Like, that's a powerful movie. The death was powerful, but the first 30 minutes, I give those a 2.
Yeah.
Boring, kind of didn't really build.
Would you give Jim?
I'd give Jim in this one probably a 7.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's about where I'm at too. I don't think it was his fault. No. I think it was it was a storyline in the writing and the character. Yeah, so I don't think it was anything any bad choices he made.
How would you act as someone who's confused and lost and don't?
Same way.
Yeah.
I don't know.
What am I doing? What am I doing here?
Okay.
I guess I'm that guy. I don't know what I'm doing here. Yeah, so the character doesn't lend itself to like much stuff until you start to grow and lean into it. No. So,
but it was okay.
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't seen it fully. I'd seen parts of it on TV. I enjoyed watching it with you. It was a fun. It was a fun exploration of.
Always good
1950s period.
If I take away some good messaging or something, then that I'm kind of happy. And it was. I like seeing the cute little small town. It was kind of a fun thing.
And Amy Smart was a terrific actress. No, she wasn't even.
Poor Lauren.
Poor Lauren.
Lauren.
You
Holden.
don't even know her name. No.
Lori Holden. Sorry.
Holden. Oh.
Close.
All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Yes. This is the Jim Carrey Project. I'm Brian Kondrach.
And Carrie Green.
Please check us out on anywhere you get podcasts. If you want to just listen to us, check out our other videos. We should have up to The Grinch was our last episode. So join us next time when we watch Bruce Almighty, which is one of my favorites, and another foray back into the big slapstick kind of comedy and stuff with Jim Carrey. So anyway, like, subscribe, comment, follow us on all the social medias. Stay safe out there. Be kind to each other and be each other's friends. So bye.
Bye.